Hey guys, welcome to the Bear Experiment podcast. We're here reporting to you live. Say hi, Gav.
Hi.
Say hi, Sid.
Hi.
Coming in live from Woodlawn, Virginia. We're heading into the woods, into the creek here. We're going to do a little podcasting, talk about some fun facts on the history of Virginia. We're going to share a little bit of the experience that Kevin and Sidney have had relocating from Miami, Florida to Woodlawn, Virginia, where they're now educators working as teachers. They've been here for 2 years. It's been quite an adjustment, but they do love it. And we've been here, my daughter and I have been here now for 3 days, and we've had an amazing time. And we wanna have some fun podcasting out here from nature and saying hello. So stay tuned for our next podcast episode live from Woodlawn, Virginia. Thanks for watching, guys, and don't forget to subscribe. Hi everyone, and welcome to the Bear Experiment podcast. I'm your host, Monica Clavijo, and we're here recording live from Woodlawn, Virginia. Now I'm here with my goddaughter, Sidney Alexa, and her husband, Kevin, and my daughter, Sidney Jolie. And, we took a little road trip, experiencing a little bit of nature, driving through Savannah, Georgia. We stayed there for a couple of days in downtown Savannah. We had a great time, went to some local ghost tours and down Old River, and just experiencing the real history in Georgia. And then now we're here in Virginia at Sidney and Kevin's house, where I haven't seen you in quite some time, right, Sid?
Probably like a year now, right?
Yeah.
Or more.
It's been a minute, and I think I briefly met Kevin before you guys left Miami.
Yeah, we at some event somewhere, I'm sure we said hi, but now actually no.
Yeah, now we're actually BFFs, and so of course we need to podcast from here because we want to share this beautiful nature scene that we have here in the background. So this is actually a creek that's in their property where your parents constructed here.
I want to say it was started construction in 2014 and finished in 2015.
So this
So
is a
it's almost 10 years now, honestly.
It's a very secluded area here in Virginia. The majority of the people that live up on this mountain are retired for the most part, or work remotely. There's not a lot of options here as far as employment. So we'll get into that. So Sidney and Kevin, born and raised, right, in Miami, Florida. You're a 954 baby.
I was born in Hialeah.
That's right, you were.
Live in the 954, but then have gone to school in the 305 since pre-K through college. So kind of all three areas.
And what
there.
about you, Kevin? What's your history?
I was born in Baltimore, Maryland, but I left there after I think I was less than a year old, and I've lived in South Florida. I've been a 954 kid my entire life after that.
Okay, so we got some gringos with us here from Florida. We'll call it Pembroke Pines, which is where the parental units are living right now for you guys. And you guys made the very courageous, I think, decision because you're so young. You just got married a couple of months ago?
Well, it's been a year now, although it does feel like a couple of months.
Okay, so you've been married now for a year. You also got married here in Virginia in a beautiful vineyard, right?
Well, we got married at Sinkland Farms up in Christiansburg, and it's like
It's a farm.
Yeah, it's just
Yeah, well, it was like a dairy farm, and now it's like they have a pretty pond
event
and
space.
they use it as an event space. Yeah.
So let's start there. Okay, so what was the determining factor in you guys deciding to make this life move You already had the infrastructure over here where your parents had a house where basically they come a couple of times a year. They have this property here because they're looking to retire here in the future. They set it up, beautiful location, beautiful scenery. Everything's perfect about this, so it makes sense also for you guys financially to make this move.
Yeah.
But what was that determining factor? Were you not happy in Miami, or what was going on? Who are we going with? We got one mic.
Before you say anything else about it, it was, I mean, ever since Sydney and I met, it was one of the first things we ever talked about was that we had, at some point, had a plan to leave Florida. That neither of us were ever happy there. We had always talked about, having a place in a very rural area and living very isolated like that. And what was crazy was we were together for so many years, having that goal eventually, and we had never considered coming up here at first. It didn't even seem like a possibility. Yeah.
So what was the determining factor for you to come over here? Other than the fact that, listen, this is more than, right, like 70-80% is that you guys had the opportunity to take advantage of this property that was already here.
Yeah, I mean, ever since I was a little girl, honestly, I've always imagined myself in a small town. Like, I grew up watching shows with my mom, like Gilmore Girls, and then was super obsessed with Twilight growing up, and I don't know, that small town life. She had the red pickup truck. Like, I totally romanticized it, for sure. I didn't really know what it was going to be like, but we graduated from college together end of 2020, December 2020. Worked in South Florida for, I think, like a year and a half. You were a park ranger, and I was teaching first grade, and we realized, like, okay, we're setting up roots here, but we don't want to pursue our life here. We don't know where, but so we figured, oh my gosh, like, there is a house here, like, let's go, let's see what happens. Let's give ourselves, we said, a year, just to figure out if we liked this kind of lifestyle, not knowing if we would want to end up here forever, but just like this kind of a new vibe. And so we've been here now for 2 years, and I mean, I don't see us leaving anytime soon.
It was an experiment for us, and now it's like, we visit South Florida every once in a while now, and I mean, it's nice to see family, but it's the peace that I think we found up here is unparalleled.
Yeah.
And yeah, we're not, I mean, we might not always be here, but I don't think we're ever going to a place that's not as isolated and rural as this again, because I think what's best for us.
Do you miss anything in particular, other than your family, obviously, just of the different, of the lifestyle changes, to such a rural area from Miami to Virginia? Is there anything that you miss?
There's some stuff, like I miss the food, obviously living in South Florida, every corner there's a Cuban place, there's you can have Venezuelan, you can have Nicaraguan food, like,
you have a lot of variety.
You have a ton of variety.
Cultural variety over there, for sure.
And there's also something really nice about just like being around other Hispanic people and like hearing them speak, and it's comforting to be there sometimes. I guess that's the thing I miss the most, is like just kind of being in a melting pot. But then that comes with, of course, all the people too. So so
the people in Miami are right. That's a podcast in itself that we can have about the interesting culture that we have, the diversity of people in Miami. What about you, Kev?
Well, yeah, like Sydney had said, the food. I mean, every time we go down there, I'm getting pasta ricos. I'm getting croquetas every morning. But
we go to Vicky's every time we go down.
Every morning we get so many coffees and so many things from Vicky's. And yeah, you miss, there is not just a group of Hispanic people, but it's an urban center. It's congested, and so because of that, there's not any time, unless you lock yourself in a bedroom, that you don't really feel like there's someone within 20 feet of you ever.
Yeah.
And here, I mean, right now we're sitting in the middle of the forest, and I mean, the closest person is probably a neighbor who's, half a mile down the road there.
You okay?
So there's an isolation here that at first was scary for us, But now, honestly, when we go back to Miami or any other place, you kind of
That's
feel
scary.
crowded. Yeah, you
Yeah.
feel crowded by people. And knowing that your neighbor is in a house less than 10 feet away from you, or just another place, makes us uncomfortable. And now, uh, yeah, I guess I forgot the question, but
No,
I,
the question is just the adjustment. And one of
yeah,
the things that I've noticed here is, just for reference also, they're very young. They're 27, 20, 27. You're
Well,
each
just turned 28 technically.
28, 27 and 28. Sydney's rocking the cradle with Kev. Um, but just, for reference here also, yeah, there's the seclusion in the area where you guys are living right now. You guys are so young, but yet the welcoming community with the majority of the residents that live on the mountain with you guys. I think that you don't get that from the people in Miami, and you could be living in a condominium with your neighbor living next to you for 5 years, and you barely know their name or anything about them because
Yeah.
there's just so much isolation, yet you're so close together.
yeah,
And I think that happens a lot in smaller towns, right? So I did see that with your neighbor. He's so. Uh, he's looking out for you guys on
Yeah.
a regular basis. Like, the guy grows apples and prunes and cherries in his garden, right?
Yeah.
In his oasis.
Yeah. Oh, it's like a paradise. It's like a paradise for sure.
You
Shout
know.
out Kevin Carrier.
and I think you said something there that really hit the nail on the head, which was that growing up in Florida it's so much of a congested space, but I had never felt more isolated from the people around me.
Mhm.
So it's like you're so surrounded. Yeah, you have neighbors right on the other side of a wall, and I grew up in a house and I lived there for 12 years, and I could not have told you my neighbor's name to save my life. And here, I mean, we have our neighbor radius in a 5 mile radius, and we know them very intimately.
Mhm.
And our one neighbor just brought us a bucket of plums, and another neighbor knitted us a quilt the other one time, and it's not just our residential community, but it's the town.
Mhm.
Yeah.
When you live in such a small town, what's the population of our town again?
I want to say that Hillsville is maybe like 3 to 5 thousand,
3 to 5 thousand.
and maybe Galax is smaller. It could be the other way around, but I would say between the two counties, it's no more than 10 to 15.
Yeah, and to go from Miami-Dade County, which is
Oh
in
my
the
gosh,
in the
millions
millions,
and
it's
billions even. I don't even
yeah.
know of.
I don't know about billions, but
Yeah. But you
maybe, because it's like 10 families to a house now in order to be able to afford the rent. So it is a big possibility that we're getting into the billions in Miami.
yeah, no,
1 billion maybe even.
I think that's a very likable possibility. So what have you experienced to have, what changes, right, when you came to Virginia? What has been the most, I guess, what has been the biggest kind of thing that has stood out for you guys moving to Virginia that maybe you weren't anticipating or expecting? Because you have traveled here because your parents have had this place for a couple of years now, so you guys did frequent the area for vacations, but permanently relocating over here. Like, what's been that one thing that you can really pinpoint and say, like, this was something that I wasn't expecting, and whether it's positive or negative, and you've had to really
Yeah.
adjust to it, what would you say that is? Who's starting? Who's
I'll
starting?
start. I'll start.
Okay.
I mean, we obviously came here because we wanted, we had this dream life in mind. So obviously, I hoped and expected for it to be better than our quality of life down in South Florida.
Mhm.
But I just could not have ever predicted to what degree, like, our quality of life would go up. I mean, I feel that we go out more, we socialize more, we have more hobbies and more, I feel like, time for things we love to do together or independently than we ever did in South Florida, when we were surrounded by more people, had so many family members around me, but I felt like there was never time to go see someone who was 10 to 15 miles
Well, because I
down the
think that
road.
everybody just lives so convoluted and congested within their lifestyles in Miami. It's just that's part of the dynamic of living there. Like, you don't have this relaxing vibe where it's like, okay, let me take out my Kindle and let me read a little bit today, which is she reads a book a day. But you know, like, I feel like
Yeah.
if you do that in Miami, yeah, you might get away with it maybe one day a week,
Yeah,
right? Because something
100%.
always comes up. You gotta go work. You gotta go help somebody. You gotta go do groceries. Like, here, it's just like the vibe.
Yeah.
The vibe
Well,
is
then-
just different, you know?
And then I think, like, now that you're saying it, I think it's really a big part of that is, I mean, obviously we still work here, but down there, just to get from point A to point B, whether I had to like run an errand after work or there was something fun to do at night, like a dinner planned, to get there is a long time. To get back is a long time. Like, and then there's the aspect of parking and how much is it going to be to park and, you know, who's carpooling. It just felt like it was more of a mission to do stuff
Yeah.
in Miami versus here. It's like, oh, let me just pop in over there. Let me go back to the house. And I've got like all that time that gets eaten away with sitting in traffic and commuting really amounts to a lot more than I ever would have imagined.
Yeah. You want to elaborate a little bit on your end?
Yeah, there's a strange phenomenon that I've noticed, which is kind of like what we've been talking about, where the more isolated we make ourselves here, the more socialized we become and the more open we become. Whereas the more in a social setting we were in South Florida, the more isolated you feel. Like you were saying, you know, there's a bubble.
I feel very alone. I
Exactly.
can speak for myself. Living in Miami, I feel completely alone in Miami, and I feel more welcomed coming over here for the past 3 days with your neighbors
Yeah.
and with your hospitality than I can feel in Miami any day of the week.
Well-
I mean that sincerely. I really do.
And we had that, I mean, just our neighbors specifically, but I mean, it goes wider with the idea. What I was going to say was my idea of what's changed here is the sense of community,
Hmm.
to the point where, you know, we were working here for 6 months, and at that point, I was put into a position where I went to another school and was working there and stuff. And when I got there, everyone knew me before I got there. Oh, you must be the new teacher from South Florida, Kevin, right? You know all this stuff, and they know me. And then, oh yeah, I heard that I met your wife. She's lovely, and you know, there's this real sense because when you have a population that's so small,
Everybody
Eh,
knows everybody.
everybody knows
It's
everybody.
like Cheers.
And you know, sometimes that can be, you know, intimidating.
Well, you have
But
to behave.
you got to behave.
That's for sure.
but you have this very, the world becomes a lot smaller, and it does, you don't have, you're not a drop in a giant ocean like you are in Miami.
Mhm.
You are a, you know, creature in a small area with everybody. You just feel like you're a bit more of a human being.
Yeah.
You know, it's interesting because I did notice that, and I mentioned it to you guys, that you're so young, you're being received with such love, right, and hospitality from all of the locals here for the past. You know, you've been here 2 years already. Like, you guys are locals. You guys are locals. You know, but they both got very fortunate where they are now teachers in this town. But going out with them, and we went to the local Walmarts, and you know, we've gone to eat. You know, all we do is eat. We've gone to
The
eat
breweries
dinner.
and-
Yeah.
Yeah, we've gone to eat, and they see somebody that they know everywhere that they go. You know, whether it's a student or it's a person that works at the local mart, and anywhere that you go, you're seeing somebody that you know. So they're in a position where you guys are so young that you can really become like the local mayors here. You know, I really do think that you guys can, you know, and maybe I can relocate here for my retirement, and I can have a little bit of pool. You know,
Yeah.
with um. Okay, so what about, like, you know, hobbies that you guys have, you know, learned to develop maybe with your newfound, you know, lifestyles here? What has it been?
For me, I've kind of been able to go back to like old hobbies that I really enjoyed in high school. Like, I mean, I used to always have a book in my hand. Like, my teacher would try and confiscate it. I'd bring a decoy book to math class, so he'd confiscate that one. Like, I was just obsessed with reading, but like in college and my early 20s in South Florida, I kind of just dropped it. I didn't read at all. And then being up here, I think when we first moved here, it was that we didn't have internet, right? We didn't have internet, and we also didn't have cable. And so we started forming these habits of looking for other entertainment. So reading, we started really diving into board games, which we'd always had the interest in, but like had the time and the space to do so. And yeah, I mean, for me, the big one's reading and journaling,
Yeah.
probably.
What about you, Kevin? Any new hobbies that you've
Yeah.
developed here, other than that you're like a full-blown farmer now?
Well, that's what I was gonna
You look
talk
like
It's
it.
about.
funny, it's funny, and I'm sorry to interrupt you, but I thought that was hilarious. Yesterday we did a barbecue. We went to Walmart. We got some meat. We got some pork. You guys had some corn on the cob. You did delicious wedge potatoes, and our chef did a barbecue outdoors with his gun. He made sure that he was strapped. Because a bear can come and attack us while we're doing a barbecue. I thought that was out of a Kevin Costner movie.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
It's new for us. I mean, it's new for us. That's definitely something we never would have imagined,
Yeah.
being a part of our lives, but you kind of need it up here.
It's very interesting. There was a lot of change in overall lifestyle. I mean, because I was not a handy person, but I maintained homes when I lived in South Florida, making sure everything was good. But here out in nature, it's a whole other ballpark where you have things like bears. So when we're out here in the forest, you keep a gun on you. Or there's rabbits and deer on
Yeah.
the road that you need to be mindful of. But a lot of what I've learned has been the lifestyle of just maintaining. Homestead's not the right word, but of a home that's secluded out here.
And has acreage as well. Like,
yeah.
I mean, it takes you 3 hours to mow the lawn.
I was gonna say, because we
Yeah.
got here and he had just finished mowing the lawn, and it took him 3.5 hours to do that.
Yeah.
That's you guys are sitting on about 7.5 acres here?
It might be like 5 to 6, right?
I thought it was like 7.2.
Okay.
It's like
yeah,
it's 10. It's 10. Let's just keep adding to it every time.
Yeah, there's a good portion of it that's all just open pasture out there, and I get on my riding mower, and sometimes in the heat of summer like this, I have to do it every weekend.
Mm-hmm.
Get on the mower and make sure you're covered for the sun, and mow for 3 hours, just going back and forth on the hill to cover over an acre of land. And it comes with its own challenges. I was going to tell a story that just happened this morning where I got in the UTV to warm it up and start driving, and the little slit where you change the gears, a bunch of wasps started flying out of there. And I jumped out of the thing and started rolling down the hill, and I had to chase it down the hill.
That's like the movie with Tom Hanks, The Money Pit, right?
Yeah.
So what about cost of living? Like, have you experienced saving? Is it a cheaper lifestyle, cost of living, coming over here, relocating from Miami? Because from what I'm seeing with where we've been together so far, the Mexican restaurant, the local Mexican restaurant, which was delicious, by the way.
Shout out to ACP.
Oh yeah, ACP. My daughter she's a little bit of a picky eater, but apparently the local high school favorite is the ACP on the
ACP?
Mexican menu.
Yeah.
And I was like, what is ACP? Arroz con pollo. It's good stuff. It's good stuff. She tore it up. It was really delicious. But I didn't notice it to be like a very big difference in cost savings. Real estate, yes,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
There you could see the difference, in purchasing a home. Here for $300,000, you're getting a mansion over here, which in Miami over there, you're getting a 2-bedroom condo.
Yeah.
At this point. So have you experienced? You're not looking for property right now per
No.
se, but as far as like going grocery shopping, your light bill, have you seen any type of difference in savings there?
I would say things like that are, like you said, feel pretty much the same. But the real estate, when we are ready to look for, it's just like you can't even compare. I mean, we would never be able to get even half an acre down in South Florida, whereas like here, like our dream is to have at least an acre of land to enjoy, and that's an option for us, whereas like in South Florida it's definitely not. And I would say that even just like our lifestyle here allows for more saving, not because things are necessarily cheaper, but just because, I mean, we don't feel as busy. There's not as much commuting time, and so we cook at home every single night. We pack our lunches for work. Like, we're not eating out as much anymore. The things that we like to do, like if there's something going on in town, like you don't necessarily have to spend money to go enjoy yourself. Like, we'll go on a hike, you know, on the weekend, or now that, you know, since we're teaching and it's summer, we're off, like we go for a hike, or we go out here and have a picnic. Like, you don't feel like you have to spend money to have fun. So, I mean, for that reason, our savings has definitely grown.
Sydney's having a heart attack with all the bugs.
Yeah.
The spray's
Well,
in there.
there is,
You just spray
on the topic
around.
of the saving, there is inflation, I mean, is everywhere.
Yeah.
So there is that natural rise, but there are a lot of other places, gasoline here. I mean, what's the cost of gas now in South Florida? Because here we pay like a gallon now, it's like $3.11. And I don't remember the exact, I just remember it being more expensive in South
I
Florida.
should really pay more attention to that when I put gas. I
No,
just have to
I'm
fill up
like
my
that
tank.
too.
It's like $50, you
Yeah.
know?
Well, I'm
Well-
like that too, because you need gas no matter what. So I'm
Right.
just like, I'm not even. You know,
I don't know too much about the mileage of your car there, but our cars are relatively similar, and mine is like not more than 30 usually.
Yeah.
So that's much
For the
cheaper.
full tank?
For the full tank.
Yeah, but I think you have a
30,
smaller
35.
vehicle than I do. Listen, in Miami, it's about 50. Driving over here, we filled up a couple of times. We refueled. And I think it was about the same. But yeah, I agree with what you were saying. I think it's just the lifestyles that you're now living offer that opportunity where you're automatically saving because you're cooking indoors more. When you do go out, you're not having to pay $50 for parking or Ubering anywhere.
or anything for parking.
Yeah.
And there's not even Uber here if we wanted. Like, I think that we're talking to some people who, you know, were born here and have lived here their whole lives, and they said that some people have tried to get Uber going, but that there's just not.
Yeah,
the
it's
necessity
the
for it.
demand is just not here at
So,
the
yeah.
time.
Another aspect of it too is, even though there is still some of that financial rise, there is a culture around here of not frugalness, but I'm trying to think of an example here. The experience I've had here with mechanics, for
Mhm.
example. I mean, I have yet to meet a mechanic who has ever tried to swindle me and is not one of the most honest people I've met in my life.
Well, because they value building relationships,
Yeah.
I would say, over getting like a quick buck or maybe lying to you about something.
And it comes back to that small population idea there. They value that because you're
Mhm.
not just another drop in
You're
an
not another
ocean.
number.
Yeah, you're that
They're
guy.
gonna see you again, you know.
And the next time I go to that mechanic, he's going to know exactly everything about my car, and he's going to ask me how this Sydney's doing, and make sure all of the kids in my class are not giving me a hard time, and they just know everything.
Yeah.
They
And-
remember.
and then I'm going to ask about his wife Deborah, who hurt her knee last time I was talking. You know what I mean? It's just such a different interaction with every single person that you know.
I love the way that you kind of positioned it where it's like you feel human
Yeah.
living in a town like Virginia. And again, I mean, right, there's so many everywhere. I mean, I grew up in a small town in Florida, and I did grow up with this sense of kind of like community, like you say, like you're driving around and you're waving to everybody. It's just
Yeah.
part of the exchange that you have with people. If not, you're rude, right?
Mhm.
Like, even if you don't know the person, you're saying hello. In Miami, you know the person and you're hiding, not to say hello, right? It's the way that people operate over there. It's just a completely different dynamic. Okay, so let's get a little bit into historical facts here. So we wanted to talk a little bit about the Appalachian folklore, history here in the Appalachian Mountains, which is
Where we are, yeah.
where we are.
We
right?
are. We're like right.
We're
I
in
mean,
the Blue Ridge.
We're in the Blue Ridge Mountains, which are in the Appalachian Mountains.
Okay.
A smaller set of mountains in the larger set of mountains. And you know, the Appalachian Mountains are, I mean, a symbol for the country of the United States. I
Mhm.
mean, the same way that you have the Grand Canyon, you have the Appalachian Mountains.
Yeah.
So to get a little bit of the age information for the Appalachian Mountains, are one of the oldest mountain ranges in the world, dating back from around 480 million years ago during the Palo- Pa- Paleozoic era. Am I saying that correctly?
Sounds good.
Paleozoic area. If you don't
Paleozoic.
understand it, neither do I. They formed through the collision of the tectonic plates, subsequent erosion over millions of years. Now, the range it spans approximately 15,000 miles from Newfoundland in Canada to central Alabama in the United States. And it passes through 15 states. So, yeah, it's a significantly large piece of land.
Yeah.
Mountains, where you were saying that it takes 7 months, 7 to 8 months to hike if you were to like hike the entire mountain.
I think it depends on the person and how many people are traveling or different factors like that, how long you want to take in each stop. But I had a dream with my dad, which probably will not come to fruition because who has time to take 7 months off? But of just hiking the whole thing, and when we were doing that research, it was just like I think it was like anywhere from 4 to 7 months that it can take. And you stop, you camp, you walk. I think 15 miles a day, and then you stop, you make camp. There are towns that you pass through, so you could stock back up on your groceries, whatever you need for your campsite. But yeah.
So one of the things that we were talking about yesterday were, some of the kind of like hauntings and ghost stories that people have witnessed while they're out in the mountains, and kind of like the historical significance with the stories that people have shared,
Well,
right?
I was going to say, when you have a place like the Appalachian Mountains, I mean, we're rural here, and the majority of it, especially when you get deep into the Appalachian region, it's even more rural than where we are now. It is very, very isolated, and it is mountainous, and it is rugged, and it is not ideal for, you're not going to find any huge city centers deep in Appalachian areas. And because of that, historically, you have a group of people who live along that stretch, that's the Appalachian Mountains, who live essentially isolated from the rest of the country.
Like hippies.
Kind of, but they live very isolated, and so there's country, there's very stereotypical country, but then you have someone who's Appalachian, and it's a whole other culture that comes with its own experiences and folklore, like you're saying,
history.
from a very isolated, forested, rugged area. And so you find a lot of stories and culture here that you can't find anywhere else in the country. Even in other country or rural places, it's very isolated because of how mountainous and rugged it is. So the stories and the folklore and the spookier stuff is very unique to the area.
Mm-hmm.
It's not like you hear about in along the East Coast or the West Coast, a ghost story or a haunting like this. You'll find areas
Similarities. There's a lot of similarities.
There's a lot of similarities. Yeah. Oh, ghosts or some kind of Bigfoot thing here. But in an Appalachian area, you'll find a very unique bubble of folklore that exists just in that region, and you won't really find it anywhere else in the country.
So some of the creatures that have been spotted in the Appalachian Mountains, the Wampus beast, which is a large black feline-like creature that lives in the woods and has been spotted around Pleasant County, West Virginia.
Oh my gosh, he's
What?
right there!
We've got the Wolfman, we've got Bigfoot, Smoke Wolf, the Mothman, I've heard about that one a lot, Grafton Monster, Raven Mocker, and Silver Giant.
Yeah, well, the Mothman and Bigfoot are really the yin and the yang of not just the cryptid world, but I mean they have a deep significance. And you need a place as unique and as isolated as old Appalachia to create some of the stories that you have around these creatures.
So what stories do you know?
Right, I mean I'm not an expert, but
not yet.
But I know that those sightings, specifically in Mothman, goes back to I think the mid 1800s. And
he's looking at you for
I don't
validation.
know. I've never seen Mothman. I don't have.
Well, I remember
any
watching a
hope
movie.
to-
It's a very famous movie with Richard Gere, The Mothman Prophecies.
Well, it's from what I understand,
It's a big black
It's a
bat-looking
humanoid. It's a
creature.
humanoid-like creature.
Yeah.
Arms and legs, red eyes.
Right.
Moth-like wings.
White. Right.
White, and so
I
and
was saying right, not white, but yeah.
yeah. I'm pretty sure. I think I've seen
I
sighting
thought it
sketches
almost
of
looked like owl-like.
Yeah.
Well, it's
Say.
like a bat
Yeah.
almost.
Yeah, and
not like
but
a
it's
mouse,
supposed to be.
right?
It's supposed to be very humanoid-esque though. Like
Mhm.
yeah, it's bat-like, but there's arms and legs on that.
It's like over 6-7 feet tall.
Yeah.
It's creepy as shit.
No, it's. I mean, honestly, it's something that exists in the back of your head, but the more we start describing it, I'm like, oh gosh.
Well, and then not only that, like, it's one thing to talk about stuff like this in our living room. It's another thing to like now I'm in the
Right?
I'm out here and I'm like
I'm totally thinking the same thing. I'm like, I don't know, because you were talking earlier also about like not saying our names in the
Well-
middle of the forest, because then the ghost, they say your name and that's how they call you and attach to you.
Well, look,
and
look.
that's what's going through my mind right
we're
now.
not. Look, we're not.
They live here.
We're not from here. Like, we didn't grow up here. The things that we know are either from our own, research or just interest in like spooky things like that. We love to go camping. We've gone on road trips. Like, we always like to look into that stuff. We like to get spooked. But something you hear, and I'm not sure why. I don't know to what specific cryptid people are referring to, but like you hear from people who have grown up here that you just if it starts to get dark, you go inside. Like, you don't stay out after dark. You don't whistle in the forest. A lot of people believe that you shouldn't say your name, like, and that's
That-
as a hiker.
Yeah.
Like, people will use trail names and everything.
Should we come up with
some trail names?
some names?
Well, I
like,
think it's too late. You introduced
yeah.
us.
you said
they
my
have-
first and last name.
They have my first and middle name now, but they say not
Just don't
to.
come here after like 5 o'clock.
And my biggest fear too, like, for some reason, has always been like doppelgangers or mimics, and that's something that people talk about in the Appalachian Mountains. Is
What do you mean?
if you hear someone call your name, or like if you hear someone even yelling, or see something that just weirds you out, like they say, if you see something, no you didn't. If you hear something, no you did not. And you don't freak out and you don't run
So complete
away.
denial.
But complete denial. You just keep trucking until you get to somewhere safe, or hopefully somewhere indoors. And I don't know what specifically it is that people are warning you against, but that's something that you definitely hear. And I get creeped out. I've had my moments where that I'm so paranoid about it living here that I will hear, the forest plays tricks on your ears too. Like, you hear someone and it sounds like they're speaking very closely, but they could be half a mile away.
Mm-hmm.
And so sometimes I'll hear Kevin say my name or say something, and it sounds like it's coming from this way, and then I look and he's over there. And so, like, my biggest fear
Like
is
the echo in the forest.
yeah. So my biggest fear is just like being fooled like that. I'm like, oh my gosh, like, what if it's a mimic, like they say, or it's like a humanoid thing?
Or are we looking back?
I just
Oh.
hear that sounds like it's our neighbor mowing.
Oh.
All the way
As long as
over
it's not
the
That's
hill
good.
there. His land starts. But
Hopefully it's not a noise issue.
no. But yeah, no. If you see something, no, you didn't. If you hear something, no, you did not. And I think a lot of it, I mean, yeah, you can put names on things, but a lot of it's just a mysterious sort of entity of whatever it is, whether you hear a noise you're not supposed to, whether you hear your name or a whistle or something like that. There's not really a poster child for
Mhm.
whatever exists or could exist out there. It's just, and that kind of ties into the mystery of the Appalachian folklore, is that there is not a lot of labeling of things. There's just presence out there. There's just an entity that nobody really knows about out there, and you just, the superstition in an area like this is rampant. You'll hear from one person who's lived here their whole lives. It's one thing, and you'll hear from somebody else it's something else. But it's very much a culture that does not try to understand anything about it. They're very much
Acceptant.
they're acceptant of it. It's not, oh, let's go investigate. If you see it, no, you did not. Just keep going. Go home. Make sure your doors are locked.
I think that a lot of these rural type areas of forests, like El Yunque in Puerto Rico, has had a lot of historical sightings with, for example, like, you know, it's been said, alien ships. Yeah. Yeah, because you're half Puerto Rican, you should know this.
I didn't know anything about it.
Yeah, there's been, like, it's a very supernatural type of environment where, what was it that you were calling it? Like a vortex almost.
Yeah.
Like Sonoma, Arizona, where it's just a portal almost, and it's inviting to
It
these
allows
other.
for these like paranormal experiences, like you said, like alien experiences,
Right.
just like all these different things. It's almost like it lifts this veil.
Yes.
Or you know, it makes you think like, okay, well, are all these things everywhere, but there's something about that place that just allows you to experience it. Look, like I'd like to think that, you know, the reason for all of the sightings and the paranoia and all like the warning is just because outside of anything mystical or magical or creepy, that the woods as they are, like, they are a scary place. Like there's animals out here. Like I said, the sound, like it plays tricks on you. Even just like looking around. I mean, when you see all the trees and like everything just blending together in all of these layers. I mean, there was a deer who went by earlier, and as soon as he stopped moving, if we hadn't seen him, like we did walk into that position and then stop, you can hardly see him standing there and like lurking when it was only like 30 feet away. And so like I think your eyes play tricks on you, your mind plays tricks on you, especially like if you're out here by yourself or having to work or anything like that. Like you just, you know, you want to have eyes on the back of your head almost. And so I think that even outside of those creepy stuff, like the woods can be creepy enough, you know. And I think even outside of that, I wouldn't be out here past dusk.
I agree. I completely agree, and I respect it. I respect everything that has to do with the other side. And yeah, because you know, it's if you don't know it, stay away from it, right? Almost respect it, and to those who do, hey, more power to you, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so do you guys want to close off, you know, this podcast with any final words for any viewers that could be maybe anticipating a possible relocation, not necessarily to Virginia, but a smaller town, right, where you're kind of coming into like this more of nature type environment, and living a big city, you know, it doesn't have to be Miami, maybe it's, you know, California that's gone to crap as well. So
yeah,
you know, and are looking to do this type of relocation. Any words of encouragement that either one of you or both of you? Let's start with you.
I would say that, you know, I know a lot of people are also like city people, that there are people who are out there who like that kind of life, but if you have any sort of like notion in you that you're like, man, like what else is out there, I would just, I mean, if you're able to, if it's within your means, if you can relocate with jobs, like, you know, we're very, very lucky. Like we said, like my parents already had this place. Like it wasn't a very difficult jump for us. We were right out of college, you know, we got work. We got so lucky with getting work here within the first month that we were here. But I mean, our quality of life has just gone up immensely. There's room for like connecting with each other, yes, but also with like myself. Like I feel like I spend way more time with myself, discovering what I like to do, having actual hobbies. Like he said, I feel like a human being, not only because of the way people treat us and have welcomed us, but because I have time to be a human being. Like it's not just the grind of like going to work and then making sure like, you know, everything's good like at home. Like it opens up for an actual life versus just like the daily grind. So.
Excellent.
Yeah, a lot of what Sydney said
Sydney's taking the show tonight.
You know what I mean?
I thought it was gonna be the other way around. I was like, oh God, Kevin's not gonna let anybody talk, and Sydney's just like, she had a little bit of cafecito in, in the house.
2 cups.
Because she was falling asleep, and it's like the movie star in her is just waking up, girl.
But yeah, no, there's a lot of time. The quality of life for us has risen dramatically um, in terms of feeling like a person. I would say if I was going to give any advice or anything like that, if you're someone who's a city person coming to a place like this, it's very scary at first.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, like people trying to do nice things for me and me like clutching my wallet kind of thing because I didn't understand that someone was going to try helping me with something.
Right.
But even though it's very scary, any adjustment takes time. I mean, we were really struggling being social and being a part of the community for the first 6 to 7 months we lived here. And all of a sudden, something snaps one day and you're just, all of these people around you and they've welcomed you and you have your small town. But it takes time. So, I mean, if you were considering ever trying out living in a location that is a small town, you need to give it an adequate amount of time
Mm-hmm.
to adjust. Because if you were city people like us, you're it's hard to say, but you're not a trusting person,
Mm-hmm.
and that will change in a
Yeah.
lot of places.
Be
There's still a lot of nice, kind people in America, but you have to give yourself time to kind of recalibrate to something like that.
Absolutely.
You know?
Okay, guys. So thank you so much for sharing, your experience. I think it's important for people to just hear different opinions and experiences from others, which will allow you the opportunity to kind of like make that final decision to make the move. We're living in very uncertain times. Yesterday, um, former President Donald Trump was had an assassination attempt on his life where divine intervention, I do believe that it was, because it was by a split second that he turned his head, the bullet that was aiming toward his temple pierced his ear. And it goes back to kind of like the big city thinking also, like and I support Donald Trump, and I also for a split second thought, was this staged so that he can get a little bit of compassion for the elections in November? Because that's kind of like the cynicism, I think, that we start developing with the programming from a big city, and just because the world is just so upside down right now, and the uncertainty that we're all living in today, and coming to a smaller city almost humbles you a little bit, right? With the way that you start viewing human beings, going
Yeah.
back to the way that, and I love the way that you worded that, human beings, like we need to start viewing ourselves again as people, and helping each other and loving each other once again. Murder is never the answer in any type of political positioning that you can have in order to make a statement, and it's very scary. Thank God that he's okay. Thank God that he survived the assassination attempt. And, we'll see. Everything is still very developing. I know that a bystander who was at the rally in Pennsylvania was shot and killed, who was, what I was reading earlier today, he was a former firefighter. Yeah.
Some sort of like leadership in fire.
I think he was already
I think it was
retired.
a fire chief or
Yeah.
something like that.
And he was shielding his younger daughter from, getting hit by one of the bullets, because it was a couple of shots being fired. It was close to 10 from, the reports that are coming out. So yeah, very, very scary, uncertain times. We need more peace in the world. We need people to come and experience, the mountains a little bit more, and kind of like learn to breathe in and breathe out, and just kind of go with the flow a little bit more, and not live so tense all the time, because that's
Refocus.
yeah.
Refocus.
And refocus all that negative energy that we have, right? And just come and self-reflect, which I think is what you guys have experienced, right?
Yeah.
Self-reflecting to who you truly are authentically in life to become a better version of you, right?
And what's important, and like you said, with what went on yesterday, you know, I think a lot of people jump to like, well, what's really going on? What's really behind this? What is the truth of the matter? And I think that nowadays people really want to dive in and uncover like what could be going on behind the scenes, and I totally get that. I think that that's human nature to a certain extent, but I think that it you lose something there when that's the first thought and the main priority in your mind, is that it's like no matter who it is and no matter what you think, like somebody died and somebody else almost lost their life. And so to even get into conspiracies, like for that to be your first thing,
Right.
like you have to reframe that and be like, whoa, like this is human life, you know, and refocus on like what's important, and like these people have families and friends, like these are human beings, you know. Of course someone might be trying to make a political statement, you know, whatever it is, but it's just like for you as a person to like see this and like almost rewire your brain to be like, you know, like maybe let's just pray about it, or let's just be like, wow, you know, like this is an awful event, without starting to speculate, which is, it is human nature, you know, but it's like something that I feel like you have to kind of be mindful and be like, okay, wait, let me take a second and let me put my conspiracy hat on a little bit later.
Right. No, and allowing yourself to really gather that perspective to say, my God, that could have been anybody.
Yeah.
That could have been me. That could have been my family member, that was just, you know, going to a rally because, you know, whatever their political motive may be, and they're just looking for, you know, a better opportunity, and they're just there to listen to the message. They're not thinking that they're going to get shot at,
Yeah.
right? You know, so
Yeah.
Kevin, your final thoughts.
On what we were just talking about there, yeah. I think it's a fanaticism politically that
Yeah.
there is,
100%.
where, I mean, it started probably a couple of years ago now, but I mean, a lot of people take some of the events that have just happened, and it's spectacle.
Yeah.
You know, it's, even though, I mean, I think I've had the chance here to reflect on things like that and see the loss of human life. It's gotten to a point where horrible events just like this just kind of become spectacle, and you know, it's become a TV show.
Yeah.
And so, oh yeah, next time on politics,
Yeah.
Yeah.
you know,
For sure.
we're gonna hear about this. And I was making the joke earlier that people are probably gonna start, you know, trying to do something with Biden now and hit him with the car or something, because now we're spectacleizing this because of some people's reactions to this attempt. Whereas what it is, no matter whatever circumstances take place, there's a loss of life. And I think it's just a lot of people become so desensitized
Yeah.
to something like that. It's just on the TV. It's just a little word that comes across, you know, person shot and killed, you know, and then you don't, the gravity of that is lost on us now.
Well, certainly our hearts and our prayers are with, you know, the families of the person that lost their life and the wounded, and also with President Trump. Um, we need to be better. We need to be better people. We need to be better human beings. So, thank you guys again for the opportunity, for us to share our messaging here with you. Look, 333 on the phone. That's always a good sign. You know, sharing our message. If this is something that you found of value because you've been considering to relocate, especially because of the uncertainty of times that we're living in today, and you found this podcast to be, you know, helpful in any way, you know, give us a like. Please subscribe to the channel, and we really appreciate your support, and we love you guys, and this has been a lot of fun. I hope you guys can hear the water running in the background and the bugs landing on our face. You know, we're gonna cut this podcast and say goodbye and go grab some food because, you know, all we do is eat on this trip, and it's been a really fun time experiencing all of the local restaurants in the area as well. So thanks again for watching, guys. We really appreciate your support, and until next time, have a good one. Bye.
Cut.